Hello, Star Wars fans. You know, there's just 114 days until Christmas 2022. And today I've got one of my very best friends in the world, Meg, with me here. How you doing, Megan?
I'm doing good. How are you, Santa?
I think I'm okay, thank you. It's been a crazy few weeks, and my dad's making some major progress. We've got a long, long way to go, but getting to stop all the craziness and come here and talk about Star Wars is a huge treat and a blessing for me, and to get to hang out with my friends is wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So, we have. I watched your video today, and there's a few things I think from it we can start with. Is the Bad Batch season 2? We can start
Yes.
with that off the top. So it's been confusing for fans, which, in my opinion, is not a good thing. Right? It's not a good
No.
thing for fans to not know, like, it's on again, off again. Is it scheduled, unscheduled, rescheduled? We have no idea.
But it seems to have been stripped and not in the good way.
Not in a good way. Yes, it's the very first news we had was fall 2022, which was really generic. But then they did put out some publications that had an actual date on it, and I've seen some confusion about that, where people said, "Well, they never really said September 28th, but they did."
They did, yeah. It was
Yeah.
published in multiple countries. Here in the UK, it was on Disney Plus on the app, and then in Australia, they removed that one a few days ago when I think Disney caught word that fans were getting excited. And then the France Disney Plus September calendar did not show Bad Batch at all. So it's very unlikely.
No.
But Tales of the
Yeah.
Jedi, I think, will drop next week.
Oh, you think so?
I think so.
That would be tremendous.
We have some people in our Discord. I think you know who I'm talking about.
I do. I do know some folks. Um, oh, it would be really wonderful to see Tales of the Jedi put in there, much like Visions. Right? I think about these as like one-off animation projects, multiple episode kind of things, and at least I expect Tales of the Jedi to be dropped as an entire season.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's being
And
sold as an anthology of shorts, so
oh, my volume's too low. But my volume's too low compared to Meg, and it's too high compared to Jason. I think Jason's the problem. That's what I want to say. Right? If that's better, Jason. So I think as far as a dropping it next, well, you said when? You think it's going to be like Disney Plus Day, right?
yeah, I think that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah. Which would put it just ahead of Andor, uh, which would be I interesting. Interesting, because if it were just me, just thinking about it through, Andor is the big series you should be leading up to, with some advertising, trying to build hype, releasing merch, just trying to get people focused on that, to get all the attention, and then as that's coming to a conclusion, perhaps drop Tales of the Jedi on the backside of that, and then put the Bad Batch right after that.
You just did a really funny pun. You said
I heard.
they should put Tales of the Jedi on the backside, like tails.
I heard it when I said it, and I thought, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
Poor choice of wording with Meg right here. And thinking, well, maybe she wouldn't. Maybe she didn't catch it, but that's
I
that was
did.
too easy.
I did catch it.
Way too easy. Yeah. So the speculation then is Andor will go through middle of November. Do they get the Bad Batch in November, December? When's your best guess?
They should have just done it, between Kenobi and Andor, because now they're in a pickle.
Sure.
If they drop
Yeah.
it too late in the year, then it's just going to run through while The Mandalorian's going on. And I know you get some people who are like, well, it doesn't matter if two shows run at once. It kind of does.
It
I
kind
feel
of
like
does.
one will suffer.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And I think we talked a little bit about She-Hulk. Disney Plus, from what I understand, Disney Plus rescheduled Andor. Lucasfilm didn't. And Disney Plus said they want to give She-Hulk some space to breathe before Andor comes in heavy and kind of sucks up all the oxygen. And even with that, they moved She-Hulk to Thursdays instead of Wednesdays, so that when Andor does start coming out, it's not competing for the same night.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I could see, as you were saying, Tales of the Jedi being Disney Plus Day. It makes perfect sense. And then coming out of that, we get Andor. And Tales of the Jedi is big enough content to carry for a couple of weeks, as far as like social media and all that is concerned. There's yes.
That is true, Dominic. You know what? I'll confess something, Santa.
Okay.
Okay, forget Spider-Man because I've seen all of those. She-Hulk is my first MCU show that I've ever watched.
Oh.
And I really love it. I don't see why people are upset about it.
I'll tell you, my only complaint about She-Hulk is the CG is terrible.
That is true. That is very true.
Terrible. I was watching episode 3 this week, and even the wireframe that they put for the model to like walk through the offices is unfinished. It looks very much like a wireframe, like of
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my goodness, that's terrible. It
looks like 2000 level.
Yeah, like a cheaply made video game, even, right? It's not even that good. So it's really bad. But the show itself, I think, is entertaining. I've had fun with it. My wife and I are enjoying it. And
yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah, I think it's
and
good
I don't
fun.
understand all the Easter eggs or anything like that, so it's kind of easier to watch. And then I watch Den of Nerds, and he explains everything. But as its own thing, it's quite fun.
I really like watching
the CGI of the really the guy who she was defending, the really big, veiny, thick guy. I just described it in the worst terms, but the guy
I'm
who was
just going to leave it like that. I like that better than his actual name. The really big, thingy, big guy.
Obliterator.
No.
I don't know what his name was.
I'm not telling you either, because I'm enjoying you trying to hunt it out in yourself. It's way too much fun. Somebody is going to put it in chat and ruin the fun, but no. Yes.
Abomination. That was it. It was that or the Obliterator.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was going to say, I like Paul from Heavy Spoilers. And of course, our friend Kendall, right? Normies to Nerds. Yeah. So, but anyway, you were saying about the Obliterator thick guy that she's defending.
I thought that CGI was a bit better than Bruce and the She-Hulk person. I can't remember her name.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, but her human name, like Jenna or Gemma or something. Jane?
No.
Jodie?
No.
Daniel? I don't know.
Jane is Thor's girlfriend.
I'm getting it all confused. This must be very amusing for people who know Marvel
I'm
very
loving it. You've making me so happy. Jennifer Walters. Dominic keeps, giving the chat's helping you out there.
Dominic to the rescue.
Look, I enjoy it, but yeah, the Abomination, his animation or his CG is better because it's they created those assets for the movies, of course, for Hulk and as well as the Shang-Chi, right? So they have those digital assets, and where you see with She-Hulk it seems the only digital assets they have are Fiona from Shrek, and they're trying to make it look like She-Hulk, but it still looks a lot like Fiona. And then it's just bad. And what I understand from like CG assets like that is the more they use them, and the more they tie it to scenes, the better it will get. And so the angles, the like space that it occupies and all that will get, the computer learns, or the machine language learns the algorithm better and better and better, and then it's filling in less of the space in between by itself, and so it's able to improve.
So I'll tell you what, though, the worst CGI I can think of in recent times, I don't know if you remember around the time of Rise of Skywalker, but there was this film that Harrison Ford did with this dog.
Oh, that's getting ready to come out on Disney Plus.
I'm not surprised. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But that dog was so unrealistic.
Mm-hmm. I haven't watched it yet. I'll catch it on Disney
Neither
Plus.
did I. I saw it on the trailer and I just thought it was terrible.
But the story for She-Hulk is making it more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's decent. It's a good story.
I'm liking that. Yeah, and people are bringing up college football. Look, I'm excited about the Ohio State versus Notre Dame game this weekend. It's college football. The problem is I haven't really been able to focus on that with everything else that's going on. And then I was telling Meg right before we came on, I'll be out working over at Dad's property tomorrow, trying to get things cleared up. So when he comes home, it's manageable. So we have the whole family coming in, and we're going to be loading scrap metal and all kinds of things. So there's that. So we get back to the Bad Batch. Bad Batch. Yeah, if they wait until say December, it could, or mid to late November, they could release multiple episodes a week to get it into January, where Mandalorian season 3 starts, right?
Mm-hmm. I suppose so.
If they would do 2 or 3 episodes a week, that could still, spread it out to fill the space and not be such a not overlap, right?
I have a different question for you. This is like a question which I guess considers a bigger picture. Do you think Disney find marketing Star Wars quite awkward? Like, do you think on their end they're aware of us being quite, I guess, upset in the fandom, as we don't get much marketing, but do you think they're trying their best? They just haven't worked it out yet.
That's a really great question, Meg, because the presumption is that Star Wars marketing comes from Lucasfilm, and not from Disney. And how much is Disney paying attention to the consumer base for their brands, across the spectrum, and are there discussions between the Disney executives and the Lucasfilm executives saying, why do you guys suck so bad? Or do they even think that? That's a good question. To me, it's annoyingly bad. It's terrible, and we're within the month, and we're just now. It's logic by deduction, not by specific marketing, where they say, "Hey, we're going to release Bad Batch season 2 on and give us a date." So it's tough to tell. It really is.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, Jason's saying it's mostly Disney. And when we look at Andor getting moved and some of the scheduling with Disney Plus, you would maybe maybe they're contributing to the problem by saying, well, we're gonna move the Bad Batch, but to win. Maybe they don't know, or maybe they do know and they're just not telling us. We don't.
In a way, though,
Frustrating.
it's also indicative of the time we're living in with Star Wars, because we don't really have any Star Wars movies coming out anytime soon, and I think that in and of itself just makes the whole franchise feel weird. Like I watched that Lion film with Idris Elba. I'm terrible with names, but I came out of the cinema thinking, it's coming up to the autumn. I kind of wish there was a Star Wars film coming out this year. I kind of miss that feeling of, I don't know, Star Wars doesn't feel the same just having shows.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I mentioned a little bit about this Rings of Power before we came on the live stream, and I watched the first episode last night, and I put a little blurb on my Discord. It's a great show, in my opinion, because they're setting up the universe. They're setting up the world, right? They're world building. They're establishing the story arc as a whole and the characters involved. So it's a bit of a slow burn in episode one, but it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. But some scenes look very much like television instead of theatrical, like movie. And I think with Star Wars, we're seeing a lot the same. We're seeing a lot of stuff that looks like TV. And I think we're all missing the cinematic, like, immersion that you get in the universe when you're watching something that's done in movie quality CG, movie quality cinematography, right? Like, it's a big deal. So I think we're just going to have to be patient because they seem in no hurry to give us another movie.
I agree with Rick, by the way. I think you hit the nail on the head. I generally, have been seeing the way that Andor's been received by fans compared to like Kenobi, before the show drops. Unless it's like an incredible show and word gets out after the first couple of episodes, I don't see it being a particularly successful show.
Uh,
Which is kind of what Jason was saying with Rob the other day about should they've named it Andor or could they've marketed it differently?
and I heard you ask the question kind of brilliantly on your video covering it as well. Like, should we keep getting shows named for the lead, or should we start getting shows that are named for the story? You know, and I think it makes more sense to do it by story. And we kind of talked about before how each of these television series, it's kind of informally known as like the Filoni-verse, the Favreau-verse, or the Mando-verse, right? Like all these shows kind of overlap with one another, but they're all marketed individually. In the Book of Boba Fett, for example, where you had two very strong Mandalorian episodes within it, would play better if it were some overarching story title, with then each episode or series of episodes being given a title. So much like they did with the Clone Wars animated series, you might get a 3 or 4 episode story arc, and they would give it a title, right, for that story arc. And that would, I think, make it less confusing to the audience and make it easier when you have, say, 2 episodes of Mandalorian content within Book of Boba Fett series. Yeah, I'm in favor of that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's fair
so
enough.
yeah, yeah. So we've got. Uh, so your best prediction for the Bad Batch is when?
October.
October. Why October? Because Rogue One
If
doesn't end until November.
I guess because if they've pushed Andor back to September, then for me it just makes sense 1 month for Bad Batch as well. But honestly, I don't know. It might not even be this year.
Yeah,
And by
and
the time
therein
The
lies.
Mandalorian comes out, it would have been nearly 3 years since season 2.
Yeah, and therein lies the issue, right? Like, why can't we get more? Um, why can't we get more just regular announcements of when things are coming instead of having to guess? There is something to be said about marketing being. They're kind of getting free marketing from social media, right? So Star Wars Meg talks about it. Den of Nerds talks about it. Star Wars Theory talks about it. Star Wars Explained talks about it, right? All of the Star Wars major content creators are talking about it and creating some fan-driven marketing, if you want to put it that way, which then drives the medium channels and the small channels like Star Wars Santa, right? Like, and we're talking about this, and so it keeps it present within the fandom as they, lead up to these things happening. But in my mind, it's still and I hate to use this word, but it's a bit of a loss for Lucasfilm marketing when they
Hmm.
can't have a defined messaging. Like just share, let us know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just to answer Dominic's question, um, I will be dropping some soon. I've been going through like this huge creative dry spell that I start working on something and then I just give up on it. But at some point I will release another mix.
Yeah, well, and you've been giving us some Meg's Cantina content, just not like as much of the music stuff like we hear here, right? This, by
Hmm.
the way, for those of you who don't know, this Meg has given me permission to use her Hoth ambience music in the background. So um, Nikki actually messaged me and said, "Hey, I can't hear the music." So you hear Meg's Cantina, Hoth ambience. You haven't been creating as much of that kind of music recently, but you are providing new content on Meg's Cantina, especially if you're a Patreon supporter. There are some great videos on Meg's Cantina if you're a Patreon supporter. So if you're not, do that. Go join as a Patreon supporter and then see the other content she has out there.
And the next video I'm doing for Patreon and channel members is basically a list of my favorite movies that are not Star Wars related.
Well, and I'm going off topic, but you also shared 10 books that you
Yes.
recommend, and then you had an honorable mention, the Plagueis novel, and I know you and I differ on our opinions of that. Why do you recommend the Plagueis novel?
I think it's the intrigue behind Palpatine's story from episode 3 and then giving you that kind of backstory. And, you know, you come into this book where you learn about his upbringing and who his father was. And it's so great how the book humanizes Palpatine on one hand and then very quickly sends him down this complete spiral when Hugo Damas kind of grooms him. But I do see your points about, you're not going to get Plagueis' childhood
No.
in this book. You're not going to get much about his story. But I think it's the whole idea of when George Lucas said in one of the behind the scenes for episode 3, he's like, Palpatine and his master were one and the same. And that kind of Sith legacy since Bane, the rule of two, the master and apprentice kind of really overlap in terms of their personalities. And interestingly enough, that's broken in Return of the Jedi, because the Jedi returns. Anakin is the Jedi in the title, and Luke, doesn't go down that path. That's his big thing. He's like, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. And he realizes that if he kills Vader, he's going down Vader's path. But Vader was never Palpatine, and I think that's one of the things the comics has helped to flesh out, in that Palpatine's biggest frustration with Vader was always the fact that he knew at some point there was this possibility of him betraying him, but he was arrogant enough to think it wouldn't happen. It was more this idea of they were very different. He didn't fit the mold that Palpatine thought he would when he comes across him in the Phantom Menace. I'm going on a complete tirade.
No, look, you bring up a couple of really good points as far as I love to kind of troll about Plagueis because it's fun, but also just because a lot of his story is not told in the novel. You get parts of his story in there, but there is a big portion of Plagueis's backstory that is not in the book whatsoever, and we only see him when he is with Tenebrous. And, chapter 1 opens with him killing Tenebrous. So he's already kind of come to power at that point. Well, everything from preceding that is still completely open. And even some of the content through the book now has been retconned through canon stories of, say, Padme becoming Queen of Naboo, and with Maul becoming an apprentice. All those kind of things have been kind of told differently in canon, which makes a lot of the Plagueis novel inconsistent. But we do have a show coming up that could explore some of it, yeah?
Indeed.
And you shared this as well, The Acolyte. And this is from Bespin Bulletin. The Acolyte set is being constructed at the Shinfield Studios, and they've got this great picture of a big field with them building this set right here. Right?
You'll know something interesting.
Yeah.
I took a piss near that field. Well, let me explain. I actually knew someone. Yeah, I should have started that differently. I actually knew someone. Let me recontextualize that. I knew someone from Reading, which is where this is.
Okay.
Sorry, my mind's just drifted off. Please carry on.
I'm still recovering from that comment as well. We've got this huge field. They built some earthworks kind of barriers around it, presumably to help. I would guess from ground level snooping, but also when they clear this out.
I'm sorry, Anthony. I'm sorry.
They will put this right. This is what I was like. Oh, I guess when you got to go, you got to go.
It wasn't in the field. I should have said I needed the loo, and we stopped into a cafe. But my brain just went straight to the end of that story.
You could have said, I visited a cafe near there one time.
I visited a cafe near there.
Yeah,
and
see?
I drank a very pleasant coffee.
You could leave out the other stuff.
That is true.
There's a TMI, but they've cleared this piece of land, and presumably this is a temporary structure. So they're building these sets. They've got this area, and when they're done, they probably have a contract with the owners of the property to return it back to its original state. So those earthworks that go around the outside there, the big mound that goes around, will most likely be put back. So it'll be completely erased as if it were never there. So yeah, so you can see these sets being built there, and they're starting to put up what will be the sets for whatever this is. This looks very much when you see this kind of archway over here.
Can I make
to
a
the
quick
right.
joke? A quick pun.
Go right ahead.
This show will be streaming on Disney Plus.
Confirmed. You see what's going on in the chat, don't you? Yeah. So Bethman has shared these photos. There's a really good story here about it. And look, with the latest leaks, we've heard for a long time that Jason, he squirts, and Bethman leaks, and today we learned that Meg streams. No,
Indeed. We've all streamed a very memorable stream.
Oh
we've
my
all
goodness,
downloaded a very memorable download.
Let's see.
That
The
was
Acolyte.
a poop joke.
I was trying to move on. The what was I saying? The Acolyte. The Acolyte it could explore Plagueis's backstory. We could actually. There's so much of that story to be told that has never been told, and they could start with a very young Plagueis and introduce him in the Acolyte, then build from that in future series and content. And I think that'd be great. Absolutely great. Daryl. That's what I'm laughing at too. I'm Daryl's comment. It's really good. I know that look, the Acolyte isn't about Plagueis, but it could introduce Plagueis.
It could.
Yeah. If you were to make a prediction, do you think that it's likely Plagueis will be introduced in the Acolyte in some capacity, or no?
I think, given recent developments, yeah, it could happen. I'm not 100% on it. I'm not as sure as I was.
This sounds like a poll question. This sounds like a good poll question. I'll put in the
North Pole or South Pole?
That's exactly good. Very good. So we'll ask of over or under 50%. Right. So let's come into the polls here. Okay. Over under. Plagueis introduced in Acolyte. Right. So we'll put over. Under, I got to put a number in there. Over under 50%. Right, there we go. Over under 50%. All right, there we go. So if you were to say over under 50%, Plagueis is introduced in Acolyte in some capacity, what would you say?
I would say over 50%.
Yeah, I
just
feel
based
like
on Leslie Headland's being wanting to give context to the Phantom Menace, wanting to explore these legend stories.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's over 50%. Could be introduced in some capacity. And I'll go with as small as a line of dialogue, but I also think that it's more likely we'll actually get a story, like he'll be he will appear on screen. Right? I think he'll actually appear on screen. So, Dominic, look, you started this too, Meg. No, I'm not.
He literally was. It was before the stream, and Santa was like, "I need to go do something, get a drink or whatever." He stood up, and he was wearing these grey shorts, and there was like this sparkly gold juicy written on the back.
No, I need to settle this. These are the said gray apparel that you're speaking of, and they're actually Puma. Where is it? Oh, here it is. They're right here. Puma, right?
I think they're a different pair.
It's not. Oops.
Well,
Now I'm
funny
sitting
enough,
on the floor.
I was at an outlet shopping centre a few weeks ago, and I saw that brand because it's a real brand, and they've got this new one that says Juicy Juicy. So my question is, Santa, have you picked up your pair?
No, I have not. I have not. Do you think there's a possibility we see a young Qui-Gon? No.
I don't blame you. It was like a size 6.
That's not going to fit. Absolutely zero possibility of a young Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon, 150 years before the Phantom Menace, is not in any way, shape, or form feasible. So there's that. Let's see, get caught up with the chat. Dominic, no, she does. You're wrong. Meg does lie, especially when it's at my expense. That happens all the time. All right. So Acolyte, we've kind of covered that. The big news that we're coming up into Andor, and there's a couple. Oops. There's a couple. Wrong button. There's a couple of stories here that I think are you covered today, as well as they've kind of been in the news. Diego Luna said it's going to change the way we think about and what we think we know about Rogue One. I mentioned before, we talked about Catalyst being a really good backstory. Mm-hmm. And Catalyst kind of gives us a nice history of the relationship between Galen Erso and Orson Krennic, and how they came to how Galen came to participate with the what is essentially what will become the Death Star, right? It's a really good book, and I think it's a great if somebody wants to do a little bit of homework, or kind of build your excitement before you get to the to Andor. That is certainly a book I would recommend. The other one that I've started reading is Rebel Rising. Have you read that?
Yeah, that's the best one. If you want to know about all the Saw Gerrera extremism and kind of his side of things with Jyn and where she's at leading up to the Andor show, then absolutely read Rebel Rising.
Yeah, so
I did send you a link just now, Santa, because we have some new footage for Andor.
If this came from... Oh, okay.
Oh, it's real. It's real.
If it was from my friend, I know that it would not be real. So we'll get to this in just a second. Catalyst. I think Catalyst. It happens a good bit before Rogue One, for sure. But then because Rogue One happens 5 years before. Not Rogue One. Andor. Andor happens like 5 years before Rogue One, and Catalyst takes place like 17 years before Rogue One. So that's a good bit before. But then this other book that we were just mentioning is Rebel Rising. At this point, Jyn is heavily involved, as well as Saw Gerrera. Kind of picks up right at the beginning of the intro scene to Rogue One, where Jin's a little girl and her mom is shot. Spoilers, Rogue One. Sorry. They shoot her mom at the beginning of Rogue One. It kind of picks up immediately from there and goes forward. And a good place, a good portion of the book involves Saw Gerrera, as you were talking about just a second ago. So I would recommend Catalyst, as well as this other book, Rebel Rising, to kind of lead you up into Andor. So we want to watch this little. What is this? Well, let's see if I can get this to. See if I can. Oh, there's a couple new shots in here. Oh, can we rewatch that? So, hold on. Luthen Rail. We've seen this shot of the destroyer going over. Now we've got a little bit of dialogue with it. The Empire's been choking us. There's a good scene in Mon Mothma, right? Having a discussion. Wait a second. What was that? Oh, that's the guy that rings the bell, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. I need all the heroes I can get. We've seen this shot here in the village. A little bit different. There's the scene from Scotland that Greg took pictures of. This dam in Scotland where they shot this. She's running. Oh, look there. That's the first shot of Saw Gerrera, right? This is the first time we've seen him in any footage. Is that right?
No, he was in the official trailer.
Okay. So here you get Saw Gerrera.
It is a new shot, though.
And again, to me, this is the same garb that we had on kind of the temple, the Guardians of the Wills, those people who were, oh shoot, what's the guy's name? The blind guy from Rogue One. Drawing a blank on his name.
Chirrut.
Yeah, Chirrut. That it's the same kind of outfit or colors that Chirrut wore. Is that a... Oh, no. What is this? It says... Oh, I see. They've got the dish over here. Damn
it, Dominic. That was meant to be a secret.
There's Andor. All right.
Soon it'll be a 12-episode premiere on October the 25th.
Could be. So he says it's going to change what we think we know about Rogue One. Do you want to give us the TLDR on this story?
He basically talks about how the pandemic was awful. It was quite hard for him to get back into acting. He loves the show. He says expect something different. Kind of similar things to what we heard before, but he says it's going to change our perception of Rogue One. And
to me, the biggest portion of what he's talking about here is this. Oops, wrong window. Let me get over here. Is this sentence here? We're going to challenge for why or how things happen. And here it is. Why the character did what he did. Right? They're really building, and they talked a little bit before about the Cassian Andor that you saw in Rogue One. You're not going to believe that he's the Cassian Andor that you see here. and where he's taken from one place to a very different place. And where we see him here may be a little more, less developed, right? So we're going to go through his character development. We're going to see him start off as a very different kind of person than he becomes in Rogue One. And I think when we're going to challenge the ideas you have with Rogue One, it's in the context of seeing Cassian develop as a character. You think there's more to it than that?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it says this had to happen to someone to become the person you know. Yeah, he starts off in a very different place. So let's see. There's what else is in here? A lot of just fluff in here, right? When they were doing the work, they're on set, they're doing these things.
I can't wait to see Coruscant.
Well, and I'm actually really excited to see Genevieve O'Reilly develop Mon Mothma's character as well, and that's the other story you covered. So, I mean, we've seen Coruscant before; those are good member berries for you, right? To be able to see those planets and places from the prequels, but Mon Mothma's story is largely untold, distinct. Outside of seeing her in some of the novels with Leia, some of the novels that came in around the original trilogy, immediately after the original trilogy. But we've not really seen her character development at all, especially on screen, right? So
Very true.
I think it will be great to see her character. And from what we've heard, this first story arc is heavily involved in seeing her character arc. And don't get too upset when the Andor show isn't all about Cassian Andor, which goes back to your very first question that we asked earlier, and the part that Jason's been bringing up. Should the show actually even be called Andor? Or should it be called, what's the word that people have been giving it?
The rebellion begins.
Yeah. Andor. Be called Andor or something else. Andor, something else. All right, so there. I'll put that out as another Andor. Yeah, I think Rise of the Rebellion, something like that, would be far more fitting than calling it Andor, especially if we're going to see story arcs developing other characters, like, for example, Mon Mothma, right?
There are way more interesting characters than Mon Mothma, but they couldn't market it in the trailers.
Well, oh, you mean in the show?
I mean in the show.
Oh, I see.
They want you to believe what the trailer shows you. I think Tony Gilroy even said that at Celebration. If you see the interview where he's wearing like a mask that's bigger than holy hell, he basically talks about how everything in the trailer was literally edited so that it didn't reveal anything about the plots.
Well, I think that's good, as long as we get people, watching the show. Which brings us to the question Anthony's been asking a bit: is do you think that it will have a bit of a Jack Ryan or Jack Reacher flavor to it, or is that misleading?
Can someone tell me who Jack is?
Have you not watched the Bourne movies or the Bourne series?
Oh, that's the other thing Tony did. No, I haven't.
We must be reminded again. She's Star Wars Meg,
Not Born Meg.
not Marvel Meg, not Lord of the Rings Meg, certainly not. Yeah, Jack Reacher Meg, none of that. No. Born Borne Meg, not that, none of that. It's Star Wars Meg. So no, it's spy thriller. The show is described as spy thriller, and the Bourne movies are spy thriller. Think of 007 or any other spy thriller series you've seen. That's the genre that has been described as, and with Gilroy being the producer of or director for the Bourne movies and the Jack Reacher stuff, will Andor feel like you're watching a spy thriller in Star Wars?
I mean, at least it's not going to take inspiration from that one, because you mentioned 007. What was that one Daniel Craig James Bond film where he's like sat in a chair and he gets whipped in the bollocks? It's not going to have any of that. In case you got excited, Dominic.
I think we need to ask Meg's girlfriend. Are you also Fast and Furious, Meg? I don't know. You have to ask her.
I'm trying to think of a like really quirky car joke.
I wasn't putting it in the context of a car chase, but anyhow. I do think it will be spy thriller. That's what it says.
Did I dream that, or is there actually a film where he gets whipped in the bollocks?
I don't know.
Is that a real thing, or did I just make that up? Because I'm pretty sure there is one.
I don't know. I don't watch the 007 movies. My wife's not a fan of them, and there's other things I can do with my time.
I'm getting flack for not seeing Bourne, but you haven't seen James Bond, which is much more mainstream. Yes, Casino Royale.
Casino Royale. Yes, Fitz says it's in there. Yeah, so I do think that it's going to feel like a spy thriller in space. That's what it says that it is. Now, will it be just like the Bourne movies, or Jack Reacher or 007? I don't know. That I don't get that impression for specifically, but spy thriller has kind of a broad category, and with Gilroy having done that kind of thing, I think he'll bring that to it. But I wouldn't expect Cassian Andor all of a sudden to seem like he's Jason Bourne, or Cassian Andor to be a knockoff of Jack Reacher, or James Bond for that matter, right? I don't think he's a government agent out to, or a former agent on the run, as you kind of get with the Jack Ryan stuff. So
this is going to make no sense at the moment, but this will make sense when it drops. There's a very, very specific part of Attack of the Clones that this series is reminiscent of a lot of the time.
Very good. Very good. Oh, I wanted to ask this. As I'm reading Rebel Rising, I have never been a huge Saw Gerrera fan. Him in Rogue One was annoying, to be honest. To me, his character was annoying. I don't care for that kind of character type. And in Rebels, I found him abrasive as well. I don't like Saw Gerrera. I just don't like him. So Rebel Rising has given him a little more depth to his character than I've seen in Rebels or in Rogue One. And Might, one of the characters that you said is far more interesting than Mon Mothma be Saul Guerrera?
Sorry, say that last bit again. I
My
think it
so
cut out.
you teased a little bit earlier that there are other characters that are far more interesting than Mon Mothma,
Yes,
right? And might one of those characters be Saul Guerrera?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think he's fascinating, especially in Rebels. In the Name of the Rebellion was one of the best episodes.
See, I disagree. I I don't like
Really?
him. I I just Saul Guerrera. I don't like that kind of well, I don't like his mentality. I don't like his tactics. I don't like his motivation. I don't like his reasoning. And then he comes off as arrogant. And I don't like that either. So it's all
See, I think his motivations are more complex than just morally wrong. I think he represents like a very big grey area between, you know, doing things in the name of a good cause, but do you end up resembling the other side if you go too far? And I think that's really interesting. And good old
as
Click
Dominic
Clack.
said. I know the way that he treated Click Clack, it annoyed me.
I mean, Click
It's
Clack
like,
was
come
a
on.
Geonosian.
But he's a very like he, a very compassionate kind of he's alone, he's afraid, he's you know just trying to survive. And Saul comes in there and just berates him and threatens to kill him, and it's not good. Not good.
No. I think he was generalizing based on his species because he associated the Geonosians with the Death Star, probably.
Well, no, in Rebel Rising, you see too. There's, I don't want to do too much of a giveaway, but one of the things that is consistent with Saul that people have seen other places, is he says we need to have a martyr. Well, we're not going to get people to join this cause unless somebody dies, somebody that people will rally behind. That's it's rough.
It is rough. But again, with, Saul being in so many different things, you can take what you want and leave the rest. Like, if you like him in Rebels and the Clone Wars, you can take his animated arc and just connect it to Rogue One. And if you don't like the Rogue One depiction, just keep the animated stuff as canon. I feel like it's very flexible, especially with the novels, because ultimately it's more like the on-screen stuff that matters more to his story.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like
And
Rebel Rising.
I'm liking it too. I'm enjoying getting to see a little more depth to Saul's character and him raising Jin. Not necessarily agreeing with him, but it's the most enjoyable version of the character I've seen. So I guess leave it at that. Oh, and 60% of the people say that Andor should be called Andor. How about that? Not bad. And Rick Jones says, I love shady anti-heroes. Well, you also love Michigan. So, who?
If I understood the reference, it sounded like a burn.
Ohio State, Michigan are rival teams. So, I want Michigan to lose everything they do. I don't care if it's football, basketball, baseball, field hockey, soccer. I want Michigan to lose, and so I've been
Ironically,
watching.
you sound like Saul Guerrera. Because what about Paul Click Clack, who plays for Michigan?
You know, you're not wrong. So funny story about that is I took Kayla to see Ohio State versus Michigan soccer game, men's soccer, and we watched the game, and Ohio State won. And at the end of the game, Michigan's goalkeeper, it was the season finale for both of them, right? This is the last game of the season. Michigan's goalkeeper came up, and his mom came up, and he was crying and hugging his mom because they lost. And we were like, ha ha, cry to your mommy, you lost. It's not right. It's not, it's not.
As you can see, Santa is morally upstanding.
That's just not right. It's not. No. But we were quite happy that they lost. Dominic. Yeah. I suppose maybe I don't like to see that side of me. Oh my goodness. All right. So, anything else that we should talk about for the Star Wars week in review? We've got Disney Plus Day coming up in just a couple days, right? The 6th, is that right? Or is it the 8th?
It's the
That
8th.
was the 8th. Okay, so we're just 6 days away, and Disney Plus Day, as you noted, there's very little Star Wars on the advertising for Disney Plus Day. There's very little known or kind of scheduled that we can tell. And I asked the question before of Jason, because Jason's a huge fan of oh shoot, what's the other thing they're getting ready to put out? The Lucasfilm.
Shiva's not wrong. I did that last weekend.
There you go. No, what's the Willow, right? Do you think Lucasfilm, when on Disney Plus Day, there'll be more Willow content or more Star Wars content?
There'll be more anything than Star Wars.
Right. And
There's
my
more of a
argument,
chance they introduce like a Finding Dory sequel than Star Wars. We'll get like a Grogu poster.
well,
something
you
really
mentioned you mentioned some subscriber only merch that may be available, right? Benefits of subscribing to Disney Plus, and
They're considering it.
There was a number of things that were on there. Perhaps a Grogu poster would be available exclusively on Disney Plus in their merch store in the app. I don't know.
Dominic actually brings up a good point. Not about the little kids. I didn't berate little kids. I mean, the next comment. The one about Lucasfilm. They do re-announce Andor like every other day.
Yeah.
And it's always the same footage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're starting to give us little snippets of other things. But as you mentioned, maybe they're holding off because they don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's that. But we've heard this before. Do you remember the Book of Boba Fett where Robert Rodriguez was like, oh, everything's in the first episode. And then the show dropped and...
And it wasn't at all. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking
It might just be 12 episodes of Mon Mothma.
After the first 3, people may be speculating that. From what I've seen from the people who saw the pressers, right? They saw the first 4 episodes. They said the first 3 is really a story arc, and it's mostly Mon Mothma. So
This might be a hot take, but I love Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. I think she's fantastic. But I don't think the character's interesting enough for a whole show. I really just don't think that. I think there's a reason George Lucas made these characters background characters.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't telling their story, right? He's not that deep of a writer, right?
But if it turns out to be like a show just on Mon Mothma, I'll kind of be like, well, what did Lucasfilm think? How did Lucasfilm think this was going to go, other than fans being bored with it? I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm just saying I know she has an arc in the show, but I really hope it's not just here's Mon Mothma bitching about why the Empire sucks for 12 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I would make the same thing for a Sheev's comment, right? Want to see the goalie crying or gullet. Saul Guerrera, right? I don't think a series, the Andor series, being 12 episodes of Saul Guerrera would play well either.
See, I disagree. I think a Saul Guerrero series could be so interesting because him and his partisans did so much. And Mon Mothma is like a senator. She kind of just lounges around and changes her clothes, a bit like Padme.
So you're saying Padme's a boring character too?
If it wasn't for Anakin, yes. Like, I started reading that trilogy and it's like, okay, there are parts which are interesting. Yeah, there are definitely parts which are interesting, like the extended version of their wedding and the statue of Qui-Gon. But then there are parts where I'm like, I don't know if I care enough about Padme's upbringing and about her feelings. I know this sounds terrible when I'm saying it out loud, but I honestly wouldn't care enough about Mon Mothma's, life unless it connects to something more Star Warsy. Like, we didn't watch the original trilogy to have, 3 installments of 2 hours of Admiral Akbar. It's like there's a reason he's a background character.
Well, maybe true, but why is Mon Mothma the head of the Senate or the Resistance, or not the Resistance, right? She was the Republic, right? Why is she the head of the Republic? Why is she the?
Because, okay, I don't want to sound like I'm a negative Nancy, but I feel like Disney come up with Star Wars questions no one cares about. They seem to come up with the wrong questions. They're like, oh, well, fans liked this, so why, they're probably wondering all about Mon Mothma. It's like, no, it was the destruction of the Death Star, the rebels pulling together. There was a bigger story. And I feel like if it was just a focus on Cassian, that could be interesting because it ties into other things. But with Mon Mothma, she's just, there are facts out there. There's her biography across different Legends books. But in and of itself, that's not enough to excite me.
I see. Dominic jokes, I want a General Grievous series. No. But I will say, I would very much like a Count Dooku series. I would Count Dooku's backstory and his story arc that we get through the novels, especially, and then we get a glimpse of in the movies. Dooku, to me, is far more interesting than Saul Guerrera's. That's just me.
Can I say something else, though?
Yeah.
I don't know where this narrative came from, probably Twitter, but I can't stand when people are like, you don't need a Star Wars show to have lightsabers in it. It's like, why did you like Star Wars in the first place? I might sound ridiculous, but I much prefer shows with lightsabers. I get that there's more things out there, but for me, if you announce a show to just have no lightsabers in it or no Force users, to me, it's like that is 90% of. Okay, maybe not 90%. That's a big part of the storytelling of Star Wars.
When I actually think about it, I largely agree with that too. My exception, the only thing that I've consumed of Star Wars content that didn't involve lightsabers that I thoroughly enjoyed was Catalyst. Rogue One is relatively okay, but it has the Vader scene, the hallway scene at the end. Think about the rest of Rogue One. The bulk of Rogue One is no lightsabers. For me, all the other ones have Force users in some capacity, and those are the ones that I enjoyed the most.
Can I add a caveat?
Yeah.
I will say or bounty hunters or that kind of thing, like The Mandalorian.
Oh,
and I think the intrigue was Grogu and his connection to the Yoda species, but you can make a show work without lightsabers, but it has to have some of that Star Warsiness to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's a reason we became fans of this franchise when it was only 6 films, or 3 films if you're an original trilogy kid.
True.
And a
True.
lot of
Yeah.
that was to do with the fantasy element of it.
Right. Or as my wife said, Luke Skywalker had his wand. You know, I have to tell the story because one of my best friends just had his 50th birthday party, and he's a sword collector. He's got all kinds of like medieval swords and different things like that, and he's a huge Star Wars fan. And he read novels. I mean, he's been deep into the Star Wars lore forever, but he does not own a lightsaber. So I bought him a Luke Skywalker lightsaber for his birthday, and so it came in the mail. My wife saw it and says, "Oh, is that Luke Skywalker's wand?" It's like,
I wonder what website they would sell that on.
it's so funny. I mean,
Was it
they are.
fully retractable?
His called a space wizard, she knew as soon as she said it, she was in trouble, and I was going to tell the story. So, yeah.
Sheath, only true fans don't pronounce the H in Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
There you go, from the true British pronunciation. So there you go. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. For the day. And I've missed you, Meg. Missed being able to talk with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And
Thank you, Santa. And Quentin has it spot on. That's how you spell it.
Light Citio Patronus.
Oh, I meant the next one. The next comment.
Oh, this one. Yeah. There you go. In fact, Harry Potter was leader of the rebellion. No, that's a good point. We have a couple of things. We do have I almost forgot the Mike Porter dad joke. So Mike Porter has been giving us. He took on the challenge. He gave this dad joke a couple weeks ago. What did Boba Fett say when he fell into a sarlacc? Well, there have been a couple answers already, and I posited that this one could actually have several answers, and it could be an ongoing dad joke where you come up with different answers that are still dad joke.
I've got
quality.
a suggestion.
Yeah.
So, what did Boba Fett say when he fell into the sarlacc? I could use a shand.
Oh, that's a good one. I like it. His answer this time is, "My good day went down the drain." What did Boba say when he fell into his sarlacc? "My good day is going down the drain."
I don't get it.
Well, like it looks very much like a sink drain, right? The sarlacc pit.
I guess.
It's a well with the drain in the middle. Yeah.
I feel like it could have been more Star Warsy.
Perhaps so. Yeah. That his first was really good too. I can't remember the answers to the first two, but anyhow, you can subscribe to Mike Porter on Twitter and follow him. His dad jokes are good entertainment. So, and he's a great supporter of all of our channels, of all the content creators. So please support him. Yeah. So I think that's it. There you go. Sheev's got an answer. See, there's all kinds of answers you can come up with.
Wouldn't be the first time I was slapped up.
That's what he said. This is why you and Sheev, I will say, when Meg and Sheev are doing her Patreon only live streams,
Oh, I've got
hide the
one.
kids. Hide the kids. That's
I've
go,
got one. The Boba Fett joke. He
go
said,
ahead.
"Help me! I'm a clone down here. I'm all a clone down here.
I'm
All
all
alone down here."
cloned down here. I got you. I'm all cloned down here. Yeah, yeah. That's good. It's our lack of jetpack. Yeah, it takes some work. Takes some work. Wait, but anyway, I think I'm going to call it. I think
Oh,
that's it.
I do have a quick fun fact.
Yeah.
So I was like a week ago years old when I realized it's not the pit of Cancun, it's the pit of Carcoon.
So King and Coon was in Star Wars for a long time.
That's how I used to say it. I was like, oh yeah, Sarlacc pit of Cancun.
The pit of Cancun. Yeah. Well, I mean, every bright side's got its dark side, right? That's what Star Wars teaches us, right? With
Sheev,
powerful
I
light,
swear
powerful dark.
to the Force, I did.
Uh yeah. And somebody else did confirm, like, the Meg and Sheev content on the Meg's Patreon only are hide the kids kind of content. Don't. All right. Well, thank you so much, Meg. And I think
Thank
we'll
you,
do
Santa.
a short outro today. Folks, we're going a little bit long, and I've got a lot to do this afternoon. So, short outro today. We're just going to end the stream, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Make sure you follow Jason Ward over at makingstarwars.net and Bestman Bulletin, and of course, support Meg on Patreon. Become one of her Patreon supporters there as well. And you can catch some of that Patreon only content on her channel. It's quite good. Quite good when you're looking for some extra Star Wars content to fill your day. You can find it in Meg's Patreon only channel.
Or follow me on Twitter at notmike02.
And not my. With that, I think we'll go ahead and call it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And until next time, my friends, Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.